I, 28F, just had the worst fight of my life with my parents, and I honestly don't know if our relationship will ever recover. I'm sitting in my apartment right now, hands still shaking, trying to make sense of what just happened. My phone won't stop buzzing with texts from my mom, my brother is calling me dramatic, and my fiancé thinks I should cut them off completely. I need outside perspective because I genuinely can't tell if I'm overreacting or if I've been gaslighted my entire life. Let me back up and give you the full picture. I grew up in what everyone called the perfect family. My dad, Richard, is a cardiac surgeon at one of the top hospitals in the state, and my mom, Patricia, was a stay-at-home parent who volunteered at every school event, PTA meeting, and charity fundraiser. My older brother Marcus, 32M, was the star athlete who got a full ride to Stanford on a soccer scholarship. Then there was me, Sophia, the quiet one, the easy child, the one who never caused problems. Looking back now, I realize that easy was just code for invisible. Marcus was always the sun in our family's solar system. Everything revolved around him. His soccer games, his academic achievements, his social life, his college applications, his career moves. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother. He's actually a good guy who never asked for this treatment. But growing up in his shadow was like trying to grow a plant in complete darkness. I was the kid who got straight A's and received a "that's nice, honey" from Patricia, while Marcus got a B+ and everyone celebrated like he'd cured cancer. I made varsity tennis sophomore year. My parents missed half my matches because they conflicted with Marcus's soccer. I got accepted to USC with a partial scholarship. The family dinner conversation was dominated by Marcus's new job offer at Goldman Sachs in Seattle. The pattern was so consistent that I stopped expecting anything different. But here's the thing that really messed me up. I convinced myself it was okay. I told myself I was being mature, that I didn't need validation, that their pride was implied. I became the perfect low-maintenance daughter. I didn't complain when they forgot my 21st birthday dinner because Marcus surprised them with a visit. I smiled and said, "No worries," when they couldn't help me move into my first apartment because they were helping Marcus buy his condo in Capitol Hill. I even paid for my own master's degree while they contributed $30,000 to Marcus's MBA, as an investment in his future. I internalized this so deeply that I started making myself smaller in every aspect of my life. I dated guys who treated me like an afterthought. I took jobs where I was overqualified and underappreciated. I had friends who only called when they needed something. Because that's what I thought I deserved, to be the supporting character in everyone else's story. Then, 2 years ago, I met James. James Mitchell, 31M, is a high school history teacher, and he's the first person who ever made me feel like the main character. He notices things, like how I doodle on napkins when I'm thinking, or how I get quiet when I'm overwhelmed instead of lashing out. On our third date, I mentioned casually that my parents had forgotten to call me on my 26th birthday. They'd called 3 days later, apologizing because they'd been busy helping Marcus prepare for a work presentation, and James looked genuinely horrified. "That's not normal, Sophia," he said. "You know that's not normal, right?" I laughed it off. "They're busy people. Richard performs surgeries, Patricia volunteers everywhere. It's not a big deal. You deserved a phone call on your birthday," he said firmly. "You deserve to be remembered." It was such a simple statement, but something about it cracked open a door inside me that I'd kept locked for 28 years. James started pointing out things I'd normalized. Like how when we'd have dinner with my parents at their house in Riverside, they'd ask him dozens of questions about his life and work, but barely asked me anything despite not having seen me in weeks. Or how Patricia would call me twice a month but call Marcus every other day. Or how their house was covered in photos of Marcus, his Stanford graduation, his wedding to his first wife Bethany. He got divorced after 2 years, but the wedding photos stayed up, his marathon medals, his promotion celebrations, but there were maybe 3 photos of me total, all from childhood. Maybe they just don't think to update the photos, I suggested weakly. Sophia, they put up a new photo of Marcus from last Christmas just last month. I watched your mom do it when we were there for dinner. The real turning point came a year ago when James proposed. It was perfect. He took me to the Huntington Botanical Gardens where we'd had our first date, got down on one knee by the rose garden at sunset, the whole romantic thing. I was so happy I called my parents immediately from the garden, crying happy tears. Mom, James proposed. I'm engaged. Oh, that's wonderful, sweetie. Patricia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. For a moment, everything felt right. Then she said, hold on, let me put you on speaker so your father can hear. Marcus and Vanessa are here for dinner, they'll want to congratulate you too. Marcus and Vanessa. Of course they were there for a Sunday dinner I hadn't been invited to. Vanessa is Marcus's new girlfriend, a pediatric nurse he'd been dating for about 8 months at that point. Congratulations, Sophia, everyone chorused. Then Richard asked in his typical clinical voice, have you two talked about a timeline? We're thinking next fall, maybe September or October when. Oh no, Patricia interrupted. Marcus and Vanessa are trying for a baby. What if she's pregnant by then? She won't be able to travel if she's too far along, and you know we'd want them there. I felt like I'd been slapped. Mom, Marcus lives in Seattle. That's a 2-hour flight, not across the country. And Vanessa's not even pregnant yet. I'm just saying, maybe wait until spring? Give it 18 months. That way if Vanessa is pregnant, the baby will be born and old enough to travel, and if she's not, well, no harm done. James was watching my face fall in real time. He gently took the phone from me. Hi, Mrs. Chen, this is James. With all due respect, we're planning our wedding for next fall. We'd love for everyone to be there, but we're not putting our lives on hold for a hypothetical baby. There was a long pause. Then Richard's voice, tight and controlled in that surgeon's tone he uses when he's displeased. That's a bit disrespectful, don't you think, James? We're just trying to think about the whole family. The whole family includes Sophia, James said calmly. And this is her wedding. After some awkward goodbyes, I hung up. Then I burst into tears, not the happy ones from 10 minutes earlier, but deep, wrenching sobs that I couldn't control. James held me while I cried on a bench in the rose garden, and eventually I managed to choke out, why am I never enough? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, he said fiercely. Sophia, listen to me. There is nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with them. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. After that phone call, my relationship with my parents grew strained. I stopped calling as often. I turned down some dinner invitations to their Riverside house. I needed space to think, to process the lifetime of being second best that I was finally allowing myself to acknowledge. Patricia noticed, of course. She started texting more often, is everything okay? You seem distant. But she never asked why. She never acknowledged that anything she or Richard had done might have hurt me. It was always framed as me being sensitive or pulling away for no reason. 3 months after the engagement, Patricia called with exciting news. Marcus and Vanessa are pregnant. She gushed. 12 weeks along. We're going to be grandparents, Sophia. Can you believe it? That's great, Mom. Congratulations. I was genuinely happy for my brother. There's just one tiny thing, she continued, and my stomach immediately dropped. Vanessa's due date is September 20th. Your wedding is September 16th. I waited. So we were thinking, maybe you could move the wedding? Just by a month or two? Because obviously we need to be available for whenever Vanessa goes into labor, and if it's that close to your wedding date, it's just going to be so stressful for everyone. Your father's already worried about having his phone on during the ceremony in case Marcus needs us. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. You want me to change my wedding date, which is already booked with a venue and vendors, because Vanessa might go into labor around the same time? First babies are often late, Patricia said, like this was a reasonable point. She could easily go to October. And Marcus wants us there for the birth, you know how important that is to him. Then Vanessa will be at my wedding in September and it won't be a problem. But Sophia, we'll be so worried. We won't be able to enjoy your wedding if we're anxious about Vanessa being so close to her due date. Richard is already planning to keep his pager on the whole time. Mom, I'm not moving my wedding. My voice came out harder than I intended. Marcus and Vanessa can come or not come. That's their choice. But James and I are getting married on September 16th at the Langham Pasadena, as planned. You're being incredibly selfish, Patricia said, her voice going cold in that way that used to make me crumble. This is your brother's first child. Our first grandchild. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Does my wedding mean anything to you? I shot back. Did it ever occur to you that asking me to change my wedding date is insane? Don't you dare use that tone with me. We have always supported you, Sophia. Always. But you've been so distant lately, so cold. I don't know what's gotten into you, but James is clearly a bad influence. Your father and I have discussed this. And there it was. James was the problem. Not their lifetime of treating me like an afterthought, but James, for daring to suggest I deserved better. I have to go, I said, and hung up. I didn't talk to my parents for 2 weeks after that. Marcus actually called me during that time. He was upset about the whole thing. Soph, I'm so sorry, he said, using the childhood nickname only he used. I didn't know Mom and Dad were going to do that. Vanessa and I never asked them to pressure you about the wedding date. We're planning to come, even if it's close to the due date. We'll just leave early if we need to. Vanessa's already said she's fine with it. It's not your fault, Marcus, I said, and meant it. It's never been your fault. What do you mean? So I told him. I told him about growing up feeling invisible. About all the missed tennis matches and forgotten birthdays and casual dismissals. About paying for my own master's in clinical psychology while they funded his MBA. About how I'd learned to expect nothing so I'd never be disappointed. About how even now, at 28, I was still fighting to be seen by our parents. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Soph, I didn't know. I mean, I knew they were more involved with my stuff, but I thought that was because I was the one who needed more help. You were always so independent, so capable. You always had your shit together. I thought you didn't need them as much as I did. I shouldn't have had to need them for them to show up, I said softly. They should have wanted to. Yeah, he said. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never noticed. I'm sorry I never said anything. We talked for over an hour that night. It didn't fix everything, but it helped. Marcus promised to talk to our parents, to help them understand. I wasn't optimistic, but I appreciated the gesture. The months leading up to the wedding were tense. My parents and I maintained a polite but distant relationship. They sent a check for $5,000 as a wedding gift, which sounds generous until you remember they gave Marcus $30,000. I didn't say anything about the disparity. What was the point? They showed up to wedding planning events when specifically required, dress shopping at Kleinfeld's, cake tasting at Portos, venue walkthrough at the Langham. But Patricia spent most of the time on her phone, texting Vanessa about baby stuff. At the cake tasting, she didn't try a single flavor. She just sat there scrolling through Pinterest boards for nursery themes. Mom, which do you like better? The vanilla bean with raspberry or the chocolate with salted caramel? Oh, whatever you prefer, sweetie. She didn't even look up from her phone. James's mom, Carol, on the other hand, tried every flavor twice and took notes in a little notebook she'd brought. She helped me make pros and cons lists. She told me stories about her own wedding to James's dad 40 years ago. She made me feel like this mattered. I cried in the car on the way home that day. I wish Carol could be my mom, I told James. She basically is at this point, he said gently, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Mom loves you like a daughter. But I'm sorry Patricia isn't showing up for you. You deserve better. That phrase had become a mantra between us. You deserve better. Sometimes I believed it, sometimes I didn't. The wedding itself was beautiful. September 16th, perfect weather, everything went smoothly. Vanessa was there, 8 months pregnant and glowing in a flowing blue dress, and I was genuinely glad she came. Marcus gave a sweet speech about growing up with me, about how I was the steady one, the reliable one, the one who never let the family down, who was always there when he needed advice or support. It made me cry, though I'm not sure he understood all the reasons why. Richard's speech was fine. Generic. He talked about how proud he was, how he knew James would take good care of me, how excited he was for this new chapter. He didn't tell any stories about my childhood. He didn't mention any specific memories or qualities he loved about me. It was the kind of speech you could give about anyone. Patricia cried during the ceremony, which I initially took as a good sign. But during the reception, I overheard her on the phone in the hallway outside the ballroom. I know, honey, I wish we could be there with you too. But don't worry, we'll head up to Seattle first thing tomorrow morning. Yes, the wedding's lovely, but you know how these things are. We'll bring you some cake and I took tons of photos of the decorations for your nursery inspiration. Love you too, sweetheart. She was talking to Vanessa, comforting her for missing the pregnancy prep class she'd signed up for at Swedish Hospital. At my wedding, I walked away before she could see me. I didn't want this day ruined by another realization of how little I mattered. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Japan, a dream trip James and I had been planning for a year. We explored Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. We turned off our phones for most of it, just existing in this bubble where my family's dysfunction couldn't touch us. It was the happiest 2 weeks of my life. We came home to 47 missed calls from Patricia. My heart stopped. That many calls meant something terrible had happened. Someone died. Someone was hurt. Richard had a heart attack. Marcus was in an accident. I called her back immediately, hands shaking. Sophia, finally. Where have you been? On my honeymoon, Mom. Like I told you. In Japan. What's wrong? Is everyone okay? Yes, everyone's fine. Vanessa had the baby. I waited for the emergency. Okay, that's great. I thought something was wrong. Well, we wanted you to know right away. She went into labor 2 days after your wedding. We're so glad we didn't miss it. Baby Natalie is perfect, 8 pounds 4 ounces, and she has Marcus's eyes and his chin. She's absolutely beautiful, Sophia. You have to see the photos. 47 phone calls. To tell me about a birth that went perfectly fine. A birth I would have heard about eventually anyway. Mom, you called me 47 times. I thought someone was dead or dying. I was terrified. Don't be so dramatic, Sophia. We were excited to share the news. Anyway, we need you to come up to Seattle next weekend for a visit. We're having a meet the baby party at Marcus and Vanessa's place. Next weekend is our first weekend back. We were going to unpack and rest in. This is your niece, Sophia. Your brother's first child. Our first grandchild. Don't you want to meet her? Don't you care about family? Of course I wanted to meet her. But the demand, the assumption that I would drop everything, the complete lack of consideration for what I might need, it all felt so familiar and so exhausting. We'll try to make it work, I said noncommittally. You'll try? Sophia Chen, this is family. Family makes time. This is non-negotiable. I'll call you later, Mom. I need to go. I hung up and looked at James, who'd been listening to my side of the conversation with increasing concern. I can't do this anymore. Then don't, he said simply. You don't owe them unlimited access to your life, Sophia. It's okay to set boundaries. So I did. I texted Patricia that we'd visit in 2 weeks, not 1. That we needed time to recover from our trip and get back to work. She called immediately, hurt and confused by my rejection of the family, saying Richard was deeply disappointed in my attitude. I let it go to voicemail. Then I turned off my phone for the rest of the day. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. The next few months established a new pattern. I called my parents once a week, on Sunday evenings, for exactly 30 minutes. I visited once a month instead of twice. I stopped dropping everything when they called. I started saying no to requests that didn't work for me. And Patricia lost her mind. She started calling me ungrateful, distant, cold. She said marriage had changed me, that James was isolating me from my family. She compared me constantly to Marcus, who called every day and visited every week with baby Natalie despite living in Seattle. Your brother makes time for family, she'd say pointedly during our Sunday calls. He doesn't treat us like we're a burden. He doesn't act like spending time with his parents is some kind of chore. Marcus lives in Seattle. I live 45 minutes away in Pasadena and you still see him more than you see me, I pointed out. Maybe that should tell you something. It tells me that he loves us and you don't. That hurt. It was meant to hurt. But I was learning not to take the bait. I do love you, Mom. But I also need to prioritize my own life and marriage. That's healthy. That's normal. It's selfish is what it is. I don't know what James has told you, but James hasn't told me anything except that I deserve to be treated with respect. If you have a problem with that, then maybe we need to examine why. These conversations always ended the same way, with Patricia martyring herself and me feeling guilty. But slowly, the guilt started to fade. In its place came something that felt like anger, like clarity, like finally seeing things as they really were. I started going to therapy. My therapist, Dr. Elena Martinez, was the first person besides James who really validated my experience. What you're describing is a pattern called the forgotten child syndrome, she explained in our third session. One child receives most of the attention and resources, while the other learns to minimize their needs to avoid conflict. The forgotten child often becomes extremely independent and high-achieving, but struggles with self-worth and boundary setting. That's me, I said, something clicking into place. That's exactly me. I have a master's degree in psychology and I never even saw this pattern in my own life. It's always harder to see ourselves clearly, Dr. Martinez said gently. The good news is, you're already doing the work. Setting boundaries, recognizing the pattern, refusing to accept breadcrumbs of affection, these are all healthy steps. The hard part is dealing with the pushback from your family when you stop playing your assigned role. They think I'm the problem now. Patricia thinks James has brainwashed me or something. Has he changed you? Yes, I admitted, but not in the way they think. He just helped me see that I deserve to take up space. That I'm allowed to matter. That my needs are just as important as Marcus's. That's not James changing you, Dr. Martinez said gently. That's you finally becoming yourself. I cried in her office that day. Deep, cleansing tears for the little girl who learned to be invisible, for the teenager who celebrated her achievements alone, for the young woman who convinced herself she didn't need her parents' love because she'd never really had it in the way she needed. But I also felt something else, hope. For the first time, I could imagine a future where I wasn't desperately seeking approval from Patricia and Richard. Where I could be enough, just as I was. Things came to a head last month at Marcus's house in Seattle. It was Natalie's first birthday party, a massive event with a bounce house, a petting zoo, a professional photographer, and about 50 guests. My parents had been planning it for months, discussing every detail with Marcus and Vanessa. I wasn't involved in the planning at all, despite offering to help multiple times. Patricia had brushed me off each time, saying they had it handled. At the party, I watched my parents dote on Natalie. Patricia held her almost the entire time, pointing out guests, helping her open presents. Richard, who I'd rarely seen show physical affection, was on the floor playing with her, making silly faces, laughing in a way I'd never seen him laugh. They took hundreds of photos, organized games, cut the cake with such joy and attention. I was genuinely happy for my niece. She's a sweet kid with Marcus's smile and she deserves all that love. But then Richard said something that broke something inside me. He was giving a toast, standing in Marcus and Vanessa's beautiful living room with its view of Puget Sound, talking about how Natalie was the light of their lives, how becoming grandparents was the greatest joy they'd ever experienced. Then he said, "Marcus, you and Vanessa have given us the greatest gift. We always hoped one of our kids would make us grandparents, and we're so grateful it's you. One of our kids. Like it was a lottery they'd won. Like they'd been waiting to see which child would deliver the grandchild jackpot, and Marcus had come through." I felt James tense beside me on the couch. His hand found mine under the baby blanket someone had draped over the armrest and squeezed. But it was what Richard said next that did it. We were worried for a while that we'd only get grandkids from Marcus, since Sophia took so long to even get married. But who knows? Maybe there's hope for her yet. She's still young enough. People laughed. It was meant as a joke. But I saw Patricia nodding along, smiling like Richard had said something cute instead of something devastating. I saw some of Marcus's friends glance at me awkwardly. I saw Vanessa's mom look uncomfortable. I stood up and walked out. Just left. Walked right out the front door onto their porch. James followed me immediately. "Sophia, wait. Did you hear that?" I was shaking. "Did you hear what he said? Like I'm some disappointment who might still redeem myself if I manage to get pregnant fast enough." "I heard it. It was awful. I'm so sorry, babe. I'm 28 years old and I just realized my parents don't actually like me. They love Marcus. They're proud of Marcus. They want to spend time with Marcus. Me? I'm just the other kid. The spare. The one they're stuck with because they had 2 children. That's not. It is true, James. You know it is. You've seen it. Everyone's seen it except me, apparently. I've spent my whole life making excuses for them, convincing myself it wasn't that bad, that I was being too sensitive. But it is that bad. It's always been that bad. Marcus came outside then, looking worried, still holding Natalie. Soph, you okay? Did Dad's speech bother you at all? I asked him directly. He looked uncomfortable, shifting Natalie to his other hip. It was not great. I was going to say something to him later. That comment about you taking too long to get married was out of line. Don't bother. It won't change anything. I felt exhausted suddenly. I need to go. Please don't leave like this, Marcus said. It's Natalie's birthday. Can we talk about this later? And I hope she has a wonderful day. But I can't be here right now. I can't sit in there and pretend that what Richard just said was fine. That my entire existence isn't just a disappointment to them. Sophia, they love you. No, Marcus. They tolerate me. There's a difference. We left. My phone started ringing before we even got to the rental car. Patricia, confused about why I'd left, insisting I come back and not make a scene on Natalie's special day. I turned it off. For a week, I didn't respond to any calls or texts from my parents. I needed space to think, to feel, to process 28 years of being the forgotten daughter. James supported me completely, never once suggesting I owe them a response before I was ready. Carol called to check on me and told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Finally, last Sunday, I texted Patricia and Richard asking them to meet me for coffee. Just the three of us. I needed to say things I should have said years ago. We met at a Starbucks in Corona, halfway between Riverside and Pasadena, neutral territory. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, looking concerned and slightly annoyed, like I was being dramatic and they were humoring me. Sophia, what's this about? Richard asked before even ordering coffee, checking his Apple Watch. Your mother's been worried sick. I have surgery in 3 hours. I need to talk to you both about something that's been building for my entire life. Patricia sighed, setting her Gucci purse on the table. If this is about Dad's speech at Natalie's party, it's not about the speech. The speech was just the last straw. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, where I'd written down everything I needed to say. My hands were shaking but my voice was steady. I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Without interrupting or defending yourselves. Can you do that? They exchanged a look, that look they always did when they thought I was being difficult, but nodded. Growing up, I was the invisible child. Marcus got all your attention, all your praise, all your financial support, all your emotional energy. I'm not blaming Marcus, he didn't ask for that. But you created a dynamic where I learned that my achievements didn't matter, my needs didn't matter, and I didn't matter. Not the way Marcus did. Sophia, that's not. You promised not to interrupt. I took a breath. I got straight A's my entire academic career. You came to maybe a quarter of my tennis matches. You forgot my birthday multiple times. You paid $30,000 for Marcus's MBA but not a penny for mine. You asked me to move my wedding so it wouldn't conflict with Vanessa's pregnancy. You called me 47 times on my honeymoon to tell me about a birth that went fine, but you didn't call me for 3 days after I got into USC. You have dozens of photos of Marcus in your Riverside house and 3 of me, all from before I was 12. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. We didn't realize you felt. I'm not done. When I started setting boundaries after I got married, you accused me of being selfish and distant. You blamed James for changing me. You said he was isolating me from the family. But James didn't change me, he just helped me see that I deserve to be treated like I matter. And instead of hearing that and trying to understand, you doubled down. You compared me to Marcus constantly. You guilted me for not being as available as he is, even though he lives in Seattle and you still see him more than me. That's because Marcus makes an effort, Richard said, his face reddening, his voice taking on that controlled anger I remembered from childhood. He doesn't shut us out. He doesn't punish us for perceived slights from 20 years ago. He doesn't act like we're the worst parents in the world. Perceived slights? I felt something snap inside me. Dad, you literally said at Natalie's party that you were grateful Marcus gave you grandkids since I took so long to get married. You implied I was a disappointment who might still redeem myself if I hurry up and get pregnant. In front of 50 people. How is that a perceived slight? You're taking it out of context. It was a joke, Sophia. Everyone laughed. No, it was the truth. You were relieved that Marcus gave you grandchildren. You were worried I wouldn't. You were worried your disappointment of a daughter wouldn't come through for you. And that tells me everything I need to know about how you see me, as someone who might eventually provide something you want, not as someone you value for who I am. Patricia was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. We love you, Sophia. We've always loved you. How can you say these things? Maybe you do, I said, my own voice breaking. But you don't like me. You don't prioritize me. You don't see me. And I can't keep pretending that's okay. I can't keep shrinking myself to fit the role you've assigned me, the easy daughter, the low-maintenance one, the one who doesn't need anything. What do you want from us? Richard demanded, standing up now. An apology for not being perfect parents? Fine. We're sorry. We did our best. But you're being unfair. We supported you. We paid for your childhood, your food, your clothes, your undergraduate education. You paid for the basics because that's what parents are supposed to do. That's the legal minimum. That's not the same as making me feel valued and loved. Marcus got the basics plus unconditional support, enthusiastic involvement, constant validation, and $30,000 for grad school. I got the basics plus indifference. That is not true, Patricia said firmly, her voice shaking. We were at your high school graduation. We helped you move once. We came to your wedding. Mom, you helped me move into my first apartment. Once. You helped Marcus move 5 times, to Stanford, to his first apartment in Seattle, to his condo, to his house with Bethany, to his current house with Vanessa. You missed my USC graduation because it conflicted with Marcus's work dinner in Seattle that you wanted to attend. You can't even remember my graduate degree without me reminding you what it was. Silence. Patricia looked stricken. Richard looked angry. What is it? I asked quietly. What was my master's in? Don't look at your phone. Just tell me. More silence. I watched Patricia's eyes dart to the side, searching her memory. Richard crossed his arms. It's in clinical psychology. I graduated with honors. I sent you both the announcement. You said you'd try to make the ceremony, but you had Marcus's marathon that weekend. You sent a card with a check for $200. Richard stood up abruptly, grabbing his keys from the table. I don't need to sit here and be attacked. We have been good parents. If you can't see that, that's your issue, not ours. Maybe you need therapy to work through whatever this is. Some kind of victim complex. I am in therapy, I said quietly. I've been going to Dr. Martinez for 8 months. That's how I finally understood that this isn't normal. That I deserved better. That I still deserve better. Better? Patricia looked genuinely confused, wiping her eyes with a Kleenex. What more do you want? We're here, aren't we? We came when you asked. Your father rearranged his surgery schedule. And that's when I realized, they genuinely don't get it. They can't see what they've done because, to them, showing up occasionally and not being actively abusive is enough. They did the minimum, and in their minds, in Richard's surgeon's mind, in Patricia's volunteer mother mind, that equals good parenting. I want you to see me, I said, tears finally spilling over. I want you to be excited about my life the way you're excited about Marcus's. I want you to remember my achievements without me having to remind you. I want you to call me because you want to talk to me, not because you need something or because you're checking me off a list. I want you to treat my milestones with the same importance as Marcus's. I want you to care about me the way you care about him. We do care, Patricia insisted, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled it back. Then show it. Change. Be different. Actually prioritize me for once in my life. Richard shook his head. You're asking us to prove we love you by completely reorganizing our lives around your feelings. That's manipulative, Sophia. That's what your therapist should be telling you. No, I'm asking you to put in the same effort for me that you do for Marcus. That's not manipulative. That's fair. That's equality. Life isn't fair, Richard said coldly, in that tone he probably used with difficult patience. You need to grow up and accept that. You're almost 30 years old. Act like it. Something in me went completely calm. You're right. Life isn't fair. But I don't have to accept parents who don't see me. I'm